What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have Jerome Powell giving a testimony in front of Congress, not to mention a very big announcement from Donald Trump that could affect the whole stock market. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. Deposit $100 and you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000 and you're guaranteed 30, not to mention an 8.1% APY in unvested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, let's talk about what's happening to Tesla. Looking at the daily chart, Tesla's continuing to get these rejections over and over again. We've broken below this support at this wedge. And then on top of this, we also lost support at 363. We saw a retest of it today. Instead of breaking past this to try to bounce, I did call out a little bit of a push that was coming upon open. And I told you if we ended up losing 358, expect this thing to start dumping. And that's what happened so far. So we're looking at this gap now to get filled around that 345 area. And then this could be dipping to the lower 340s from there. And we'll have to see if that holds next. Otherwise, Tesla looks a bit more bearish. So why is Tesla bearish? And what's happening with Trump and Jerome Powell for tomorrow? Let's talk about this. Just know the market was green, but Tesla's in the red, which is showing some relative weakness. So the first thing that's going on is Elon Musk is getting lots of criticism. He is in support of Trump, but despite that, the criticism is going to continue. So there's been different analysts out there from Stifel who have lowered their price targets to about $474 for the end of the year. They used to say Tesla was going to go to about $492 a share. Now they're decreasing that a little bit. And they're basically saying this because they believe that Elon Musk's political activity is starting to weigh in on how consumers are viewing Tesla. Now, I mentioned before that we can't solely throw everything on Elon Musk, considering the fact that many of these buyers were waiting for the Model Y refresh. So we'll see how that ends up looking, at least as time goes on. But just keep in mind, once the refresh comes out, we'll see if Tesla can make a comeback in terms of their sales. For now, the sales for Tesla have been weak in Europe, especially a little bit weaker in China and the US, but Europe has been a little bit bad, especially when you look at like Germany, the UK, and then Italy. Not the best of news, at least so far. So that's part of why the share price is dipping, all the criticism of Elon Musk and their sales. The second reason is we're starting to see a different view of them. I'm seeing other articles saying different things about how Tesla could end up falling behind on many of its goals. I'm not here to spread negative news. I'm just telling you what some of these mainstream articles are saying. So the issue was that there was a crash that happened to a Cybertruck while using full self-driving technology, and despite the latest FSD updates, the accident still happened. Fortunately, the Cybertrucks are very safe, and the person involved did not end up getting injured. I'm very happy about that, but that led to some criticisms about whether or not Tesla will end up meeting their deadlines. We are expecting an unsupervised FSD to be launched in June, sometime in, I would say, like in the future for the state of Texas. So we're going to wait and see if that ends up being the case. I hope that ends up being the case. And even if it does take longer, things could be delayed if things don't end up going as planned. Sometimes that does happen. But nonetheless, Tesla will still be fine for the long term. It just is going to take a while to get this technology fully developed. There's also some bad news that came out that Tesla is going to be increasing the Model X price, bringing back the incentive that Elon Musk was talking about beforehand. The price has gone up by about $5,000. So with the did I say Model Y? Sorry, I meant Model X. The Model X price is actually going up by about $5,000 in the US. So, not the best of news, at least for the time being. It's also not going to be qualifying for the new, or at least the old federal tax credits. It's not the best of news. So it's just been bad news after bad news after bad news for Tesla. That's what is causing the share price to just get hammered. And then there's even more news coming out for tomorrow. So what is happening tomorrow? What is Jerome Powell? What is Donald Trump doing? Let's talk about this. Tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, February 11th, okay? At 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 30 minutes after the stock market opens. We have Jerome Powell giving a testimony. And what this guy says could shake the markets. So where is Jerome Powell going to be? What is happening? Tomorrow, Jerome Powell is going to be testifying in front of Congress. It's going to be going on for Tuesday and Wednesday. To start things off, he's going to be in front of the U.S. Senate. He's going to appear before the Senate tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, he's going to be appearing in front of the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, typically the first day is more, I would say, more impactful than the second day. The second day is usually not as crazy. But here's what's happening tomorrow. At 10 a.m., Jerome Powell is going to be in front of the US Senate. There are 100 senators he's going to be in front of. And then what's going to happen is he's going to give his speech about inflation, what's happening with the economy, interest rates, and factors like that. Okay, so he's going to give a speech. The market may or may not react too much to it. Typically, his first speech is not too crazy. He says the same things he typically says, but then these politicians are going to hammer at him. They're going to be asking him what's happening with inflation, what's happening with interest rates, what's going on with the tariffs that are coming out. And they're going to keep on asking this guy question after question after question. Jerome Powell is typically very ambiguous. He's typically quiet. He does not try to say too many things to shake things up. But if he gives us some kind of insights about what's happening with inflation or the tariffs, and he says something the market does not like, there could still be a very big move. So there's the possibility of the market making a big move to the upside or the downside, depending on what Jerome Powell says. And that could affect Tesla to some extent because Tesla is very sensitive to interest rates. You could see how it's affecting their sales and factors like that. So please keep that in mind. Whatever Jerome Powell says, the big guy, it's going to be causing a lot of volatility. Honestly, guys, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know exactly what he's going to say, so we have to be prepared for anything just to be safe. So get ready for this. We'll see what Jerome Powell says. Now, there's another big factor, and that's Donald Trump. So these are the two big factors, Jerome Powell and Donald Trump, at least for the broader markets, and this does include Tesla. So what's Donald Trump now up to? And he said something very, very important. First off, the White House have announced that they're going to be increasing tariffs to 25% on all steel and aluminum imports, right? The US's top steel importers include Canada, Mexico, and Brazil, and the higher tariffs may increase US inflation, affecting a lot of different industries that are reliant on these metals. So that's the first thing that Trump has announced. That's very important. It's going to be affecting inflationary data and factors like that. And then you guys have to remember that there's something else that he said. I was going over this in my previous videos. Today, Donald Trump told reporters, okay, that he's going to be announcing reciprocal tariffs likely on Tuesday or Wednesday. So tomorrow or the day after, he's going to be announcing more tariffs on countries that have been placed tariffs on U.S. goods. So the countries that place tariffs on U.S. goods, he wants to report tariffs on them. If they're charging us 130% in the words of Donald Trump, and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way for long. So he is mentioning that he wants the U.S. to basically charge tariffs back at these countries, and he's going to make the announcements either on Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's very, very important. Okay, Mexico, Canada, and China are the top three trade partners of the U.S. Trump initially prioritized them when it came to tariffs, so you could assume that he's going to prioritize the bigger trade partners, whichever ones may have bigger deficits in his view. We have Germany, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, the UK, and India, some of the top ones. I believe that he's going to be announcing tariffs on many EU countries within the next 2 days. Germany could be a big one. The UK could be one. We're going to be looking at other countries like the Netherlands, Italy. I can't wait to see what this leads to. Then there's also Japan. A lot of these Asian countries we depend on for manufacturing, semiconductors, and technology. Taiwan's a big one for semiconductors. Then we have Vietnam. So every one of these are small when you look at them individually. Like Germany makes up 5% of our trade. Japan is 4%. But when you combine them, if Donald Trump starts saying this about Europe, Japan, Germany, everything combined, it makes up a much larger percentage of our GDP, right? So Germany, Japan, and South Korea, for example, if you combine our imports from them, that's actually almost twice the size of the imports we get from China, believe it or not, right? Pretty insane. So if you think about it, right, this is pretty big. This is going to be very, very wild. If you include Taiwan as well, if you include Taiwan as well in those, then it's almost twice the size of China. But anyways, that's going to be very, very important. So make sure you guys are ready for this. He's going to make the announcements either tomorrow or on Wednesday, most likely, and it's going to be causing a lot of disruptions in the economy. For the short term, his tariffs are going to cause inflation to go up. GDP is going to be contracted. Businesses are going to be disrupted for the short term. Why is that? One of the reasons is because the US is going to be incentivized to start producing things more locally, but we don't have those options right now. It's not like the US could just start building iPhones in America. It's going to take a while. So that's going to cause a big disruption. There's going to be a lot of fear. And keep in mind that when Donald Trump announced the tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada, just check this out, guys. This is very important. When he first made the announcement, the market dumped. We got these crazy dumps that happened to the markets. I'm sure you guys remember we got these huge dumps. Then I think this is the first move right over here. Then, as the market tried to recover, we had other dumps that came. Over here, we had this instance where, I'm sorry, I think this is the dump right over here. This is the dump when we had that news about Mexico, China, and Canada, but then the market made a full recovery, at least almost. Then on Friday, this is what happened. Donald Trump made the announcement that he's going to be announcing more tariffs. Just the fact that he said he's going to be, announcing more tariffs in 1 week, the market dumped 8 points. So you guys could see the tariffs, they tend to cause the market to dip, and that could be a bearish catalyst for the short term because of the disruption it's going to be causing. So I want to give you guys a heads up about that this could be affecting Tesla and the others if Donald Trump makes that announcement. With that being said, let's talk about two more things and I'll break down the charts. We had McDonald's and Monday.com announced their earnings. I went over this already. Nothing too significant for after close today. But tomorrow we have Shopify and Coca-Cola in the morning, excuse me. And then we have Supermicro, Upstart, DoorDash, and a few more announcing earnings later on. Then we have the rest of these, at least for the next couple of days. But for now, we'll focus on Shopify and Coca-Cola for tomorrow. The fear and greed index is currently at neutral, stuck in the middle between these key levels. This is becoming a little bit more fearful as time goes on. Momentum is also at fear right here. We'll have to see if this shifts or not. The put to call option ratio is at greed. This is dipping right now. So as this is dipping, we're seeing more of these puts being closed. So keep that in mind, guys. We have to be very, very careful. As people are closing puts now, are we about to see the market makers do the opposite? When people are closing shorts, are they going to start, shorting the market and causing the market to dip instead? We'll see about that. And then that's pretty much it for now. With that being said, that is it for my analysis of the news. I'm not sure if other people were talking about this, but Trump already made the announcement that within 2 days, he's going to be announcing these tariffs. So what do I think about Tesla and the others? Here's my honest assessment. I need Tesla to reclaim 363. If we can't do that, we're going to be at risk of more downside, plain and simple. So when Jerome Powell opens his mouth, it's possible Tesla tries to retest the 350s, 355, for example. It could be retested depending on what Jerome Powell says. But then by the time Trump starts announcing these tariffs, I do think there's going to be a risk of more downside. Technically, Tesla is more bearish, at least based off technicals, right? We have a gap to fill down here at 345, which is likely going to be coming. Then we have this imbalance down here around 336. So I think the low 340s are very, very probable for Tesla. And we look quite bearish with all this bad news that keeps on coming out. So we could see a temporary move up. It depends on what Jerome Powell says in front of the U.S. Senate tomorrow. We'll have to see about that if we temporarily push before we continue to start dipping back down towards 340. We may not even get much of a bounce. We could just start dipping from here. So there's going to be a risk of more downside on Tesla. We could turn back to bullish if we get back above 363. Otherwise, we favor downside for now, in my honest opinion. How about for SPY? Well, check this out, guys. When looking at SPY, notice that when you zoom in like this, every time SPY hits 608, we reject, reject, reject. 610, we reject, reject, reject. We keep on rejecting off 608 to 610 over and over again. So we're at resistance right here. We do have a gap to fill down here, so it's a little suspicious. If we break past 605, we're looking for 607.5, depending on Jerome Powell's speech. If we lose 602.5, we're looking for a dump to 600 and 598. My opinion is that we'll see what Jerome Powell causes if we get some kind of pump or not. If we don't clear 605, though, there's going to be a risk of us returning back down to fill that gap around the low 600s, and eventually 598 if Donald Trump announces these tariffs, right? Donald Trump made the announcement about the Chinese tariffs. The Canadian ones, the market dumped before getting bought back up because the Canadian ones and the Mexican ones were delayed. Then he announced that he wants to announce more tariffs again. He made the announcement on Friday. He didn't say specifically how he was going to do it, but that caused the market to dip. So I presume that if he announces tariffs again, the market is going to be looking for something very, very interesting. So keep that up, guys. That's going to be very, very important. This may continue to fall, so keep that in mind. When it comes to other factors out there, we have the QQQ. We have this resistance around this 530 area. If that doesn't hold, we're looking for essentially the move back down to 525, so keep that in mind. Notice that every time we hit the 530 to 533 zone, we reject. So we rejected, 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 rejected every single time, at least on the QQQ. And that's going to be very, very important. So keep that in mind. I also want to mention that on the QQQ, even though we do tend to reject like this is getting held up by Nvda. Nvda and all these other stocks will be affected by tariffs. So if Jerome Powell causes a pump, we have to break 530 to push for 533 plus. But every time we've hit that for the last few months, we have rejected, in all honesty. And then if we end up dipping, just keep in mind we have 525.92 as our support. If that fills us, we could be dipping back down towards the 522 area and eventually 517 to fill this, not fill the gap, but come down to the 200 EMA. So I think what's going to happen, this is my opinion, I don't know what Jerome Powell is going to cause. He might cause a bit of a shuffle, but then Donald Trump's tariffs, if he announces them, that might cause a little bit of a dip. The odds do favor that. The market's not been liking that, at least for the short term. Right, long term, we'll see if it's worth it. Maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. That's up to you guys to decide. I'm not here to say that. That depends on how much revenue the government makes and if they can offset the downside that's going to come. But I'm just here to say that for the short term, tariffs are a little bearish for the markets, just for the short term. They cause higher inflation and factors like that. Anyways, for the Russell, there's an inverse head and shoulders, but we need to break 230 to really start pushing. If we lose 225, I'll be looking at the gap down here around this 219 to 220 area. So we'll see how it goes. But if anything, keep in mind that if 225 breaks, we will turn back down. So there's a tough resistance right here. We'll have to see if we get some kind of rebound or not like this before it starts to dip. It might be a small rebound, but if we don't hold 225, we could be dipping lower depending on the tariff announcements. I do have a theory. This is just like a hypothetical situation, so don't take this way too seriously, but there's a possible like head and shoulders maybe on ES. A little bit hard to see. This is kind of like a left shoulder. This is kind of like a head, and then this could be like a right shoulder that could be forming if we do get a rejection here. If we lose 60-45 after Powell and Trump tomorrow, after Trump announces tariffs, if he does, we could be looking for a move like this. However, if we break 61.25, I will turn bullish. If Jerome Powell causes a launch, then yes, we will remain bullish. What I think that is very probable is that we could be forming a flag. So this tells me something very interesting. Notice we had a very similar pattern before, right? We had this flag that was forming like this, and then we got a breakout, right? What if we're about to do the same thing? Like, even if we do get some kind of dip temporarily with Trump's tariffs, it might just be a temporary move down, just hypothetically. We'll see if we get a rejection or not, if that ends up being the case. We could be making a move like this before we see the next leg up. It could just be a temporary dip for a big bounce, so just keep that in mind. That's just a hypothetical possibility. So I want to be very, very frank that I'm not a permanent bear. I'm just talking about a temporary move down when it comes to Trump. So keep that in mind. On NQ, every time we're hitting around 22,000, we just keep rejecting. We need to try to get back above 22,000 to be bullish. If not, we could be dipping to 21,500. My gut tells me we're just going to consolidate up here. Then we might be dipping to 21,500. We'll see if we break or not. So give this some time. Also, I want to add that, like ES, there's a possibility, not a guarantee, but a possibility of a head and shoulders here that could be forming like this, just temporarily. We'll see about this if that ends up being the case or not. Maybe this is like our right shoulder right here. So we'll see. I'm going to be very patient nonetheless. So we could go either way depending on Powell. If we lose 21,674, we could be dipping a lot lower, all the way down to below 21,500s. If we break 22,000, we're bullish. There's going to be a risk of downside looking at these different factors. For Bitcoin, if we break 97,936, we're looking for a push for 99,383. If we lose 97,163, we could be dipping back down to 96,000. So it could go either way. There's a nice accumulation right here. Might dip here before it tries to push. For now, it's a little bit more bullish, but keep in mind the tariff news could still affect this. Nvidia is looking bullish. It's very strong, very resilient, but be careful if Trump ends up announcing tariffs on Taiwan. Not a guarantee, but if that happens, this would dip a little bit possibly, and then eventually try to bounce and break out like this. If not, if he does not make the announcement, we just continue to hold up. If we clear past 135, we're looking for an attempt to fill this gap. So either way, it's bullish. Whether we get a dip first and then bounce, or if we just push from here, we're still bullish on Nvidia nonetheless. I'm going to go over the rest of these and try to be kind of quick now. I think I'm running out of time. Looking at Aapl, we are technically on a bit of a downtrend. We're watching to see if 226 holds. New tariffs could be a little negative for Aapl, especially the ones that were just announced. So if 226 fails, we're looking for this imbalance down here around 222. If this holds, we could try to bounce. There's going to be a risk of this dipping, though, looking at the current trend. For Netflix, this might retest 1,018 before it tries to bounce. So look for a little bit of a dip. 1,010 before it tries to bounce. Might be a small dip here. For MSTR, we're looking bullish with the inverse head and shoulders like pattern. We'll see how the tariff news affects this, if this gets some kind of dip or not. As long as we don't lose 325, the inverse head and shoulders is valid, and this could still try to bounce. If we lose 325, we will be dipping lower. So I do think we might retest that before it tries to bounce. Right now, the setup is more bullish, but we'll see just to be safe. Celsius is on a bit of a downtrend. We're barely at support. Now we got to hold this to try to get a bounce or retest in the bounce. If not, this could be dipping back down towards below 21. So watch to see how we end up reacting to 21. If we get some kind of bounce or not, give this some time just to be safe. For Supermicro, we're looking bullish so far. I think they announced earnings a little bit early. So that's not too bad. Or I think earnings actually come out tomorrow. They're coming out tomorrow, but so far it's still running very nicely. So we'll see if we surpass this resistance at the resistance right here at 44. It looks bullish approaching earnings, but just be careful. Sometimes there's a saying that goes by the rumors sold news. So we'll see if the news is priced in or not. If we lose 40, we will turn back down towards 38, but overall looks a bit more bullish. Palantir is looking bullish. So far, it's doing a great job. I do want to warn you guys about the possibility of a wedge that's forming, though. As of right now, it's on a very, very strong uptrend, but be careful in case this is forming some kind of wedge like this. For now, it may ride the wedge up, but if we start losing this wedge, we're going to be looking for a retest of like 107. So for now, it's bullish, but we'll see if we end up holding after Powell's speech. Rivian looks more bullish. As long as we don't lose 12.97, we do favor 13.25 or above. If we lose 12.75, we turn back down, but this is looking bullish, so we'll see if that holds. So far, it's on a falling wedge-like pattern. If we break past 15.58, we're looking for a bigger push for 16.25. So watch to see if we end up getting that break. Overall, we're doing a fantastic job. For AMD, we have this resistance around this 110.8 area. If that breaks, we're looking for 114. We also have this gap down here to fill, so we'll see if we dip and bounce. So give this some time. For ARM's on a bit of a downtrend. We're actually forming like a falling wedge. This may, I can't guarantee you it's going to hold. We might just respect this a little bit longer. And then we'll see if Donald Trump or Jerome Powell affect this wedge, whether we get a bounce or not. It is favoring 158 to 155 if that ends up failing. So we'll see if it even holds or not. Coinbase looks a little bit more bullish. We have to try to hold above 281. If we do that, we're looking for essentially 288. So we'll see if that holds. On Amazon, we have resistance around this 233 area. If that breaks, we're looking for 235. If that doesn't hold, we could be looking for a dip. It's possible we get a temporary dip before it tries to bounce, though. So I'll see if that ends up being the case. Meta might be retesting 709. We'll see if we bounce off that, but there might be a temporary dip here looking at the technicals. Microsoft might retest 408. Unfortunately, we have a high here, came down in a lower high. So we're in a range. We're stuck between 408 and 415. Might be dipping to 408 again, so just be careful. Google might also be retesting 188, so we'll see what kind of reaction we get, so keep that in mind. GameStop is looking bullish, looking for an attempt for 27.7. AMC is bullish and following GameStop going for 3.23. They're both doing a good job so far. DJT is going to react. It's very flat right now. We're going to have to wait and see what Trump says tomorrow, or if not by Wednesday. And it's the same thing. The VIX could go either way. Same thing with the 10-year and the dollar. The dollar looks a little bit more bullish, which tends to not be the best for the markets. But this all depends on CPI, not to mention what's announced with the tariffs and factors like that. So the bottom line is tomorrow when Jerome Powell opens his mouth, expect some volatility, most likely, depending on what he ends up saying. I think that he's going to try to not say too much in the beginning, but then when he's asked questions by the Senate, it could change things. So get ready for volatility at 10 a.m. And then at any given time, Donald Trump will be announcing tariffs, most likely, more tariffs on more countries. The reaction may not be the best, so there could be a dip coming once he does it. So get ready for that as well, guys. I'm just here to give you guys a heads up about this. He says he's going to do it on Tuesday or Wednesday, so just keep that in mind. Tesla's looking bearish for now. Okay, there is a risk of more downside for the shorter term. For the long term, though, I'm still a big bull because of what Tesla's developing, because of Tesla's vision and factors like that. Tesla is not a sprint; it's a marathon. It's going to take a while to really see the potential in this company. So give it some time and be patient, guys. Thank you for listening, guys. I appreciate you guys so much for your listening. Have a good rest of your day and peace out.